Hi, my name is Jack Lisinski, and this is my presentation on how wildlife personalities play a role in ecosystems. First of all, we have to talk about how do animals affect an ecosystem. An abundance of prey, habitat quality, and behavior assesses the roles animals hold in particular ecosystems. Animals have a relationship with ecosystems where an ecosystem affects how an animal survives and therefore how an animal behaves, and vice versa. An animal's behavior can also have an effect on an ecosystem's shape or balance. The topic we'll be focusing is on how the variability of animals' behaviors affect ecosystems. According to the New York Times, there is a large range of personality traits in animals, whether they're grizzly bears, squirrels, or even bacteria and earthworms. All animals have personalities, and this is a very briefed on topic within ecology, and it's super interesting seeing how personalities of different animals can have such a broad range of effects on an ecosystem, and this topic needs to be shed some light upon. The primary literature article of this topic is based on two questions. The first one being, to what extent are personality type and microhabitat selection correlated among conspecifics? The second is, does land use change alter individual patterns of microhabitat selection? To answer these questions, the primary research article authors conducted a very long, more than 4-year experiment managing the contrasts and comparisons of unmanaged forests as their control variable with a managed forest as all of their other variables in Maine. They mainly examined the relationships between habitat selection and personality traits in deer mice. They chose deer mice because it's a cheap organism that they can get grants on and they can get FIPA processes on very easily. So, how did the New York Times article portray the primary literature article? So, it mainly is broken down into 3 topics. The first topic, is the prediction of how populations will respond to land use change. The New York Times did not portray this topic well at all. They briefed about how personalities contribute to the ecosystem, but there's no discussion on how land use change or human intervention affects organisms' behaviors. The second is determining if personality traits correlate with microhabitat selection. The New York Times did not really describe on how personality traits can contribute to where an organism decides to live in an ecosystem or their niche. They mainly talked about how other animals have behaviors that are unique, and they didn't really talk about how it contributes to the ecosystem. The third topic is, does land use change alter individual patterns of microhabitat selection? Since the New York Times did not really go over the first 2 topics, which feed into this question, that means that they didn't really nail this on the head of the nail at all. They described briefly how modifying landscapes in certain ways favors certain types of personalities rather than others, but not really anything about major microhabitat selection due to land use change. On the left here's there's 2 figures from the main primary literature article. On the top, you can see how they determined if deer mice versus low activity and high activity contributed to how they chose their microhabitat within an ecosystem. And you can see that the more active mice typically go for unmanaged areas. And this can tell you about how different animals in the same species can have different niches based off of their personality. High active deer mice have an entirely different niche and microhabitat selection than low activity deer mice. And that is a super fascinating area of ecology because it broadens the range of how ecosystems can contribute to an ecosystem drastically. Next is the short answer yes or no for did the New York Times accurately describe the topics of the primary literature article? And the answer is no. There's really 3 reasons why. The first one is the New York Times only wrote 2 sentences out of the whole article describing the main topic of the primary research article. Both questions were very, very undercut in the New York Times article. And the second one was completely negligized. The second reason is the New York Times article primarily focused on personalities of different animals, not how they affect an ecosystem. And the third is the New York Times article did not describe land use alterations and how they affect the personalities of the animals in the ecosystem. The New York Times article mainly described what animals have unique personalities in order to appeal to the general public of the New York Times. It was not focused on anything deep research like the primary literature article, so I believe that is the reason why the New York Times poorly described the topics of the primary literature article. Here are my credits, or we're excited. The first one is going to be the New York Times article that I discussed, and the second is going to be my primary literature article that the New York Times article was based on. Thank you so much for your time, and have a nice day.